The film, initially titled Happy Death, is based on an original story created by screenwriter Scott Lobdell. It was first announced. The film, initially titled Happy Death, is based on an original story created by screenwriter Scott Lobdell. It was first announced. The film, initially titled Happy Death, is based on an original story created by screenwriter Scott Lobdell. It was first announced in June 2007 to be produced by Michael Bay and Rogue Pictures and directed by Antti Jokinen. Christopher Landon was hired to rewrite Lobdell's original screenplay. Blumhouse announced the project on October 11, 2016, with Landon directing and Jessica Roth cast in the lead role of the film. On November 8, 2016, it was announced that Ruby Modine, Charles Atkin, and Rachel Matthews had joined the cast alongside Roth and Israel Broussard. The film would be retitled and eventually released in 2017 as Happy Death Day.
Hey.
Hi.
You haven't returned any of my texts.
Yeah, sorry, I've been busy.
Yeah, I can see that.
Okay, Tim, we went on a date. One. I don't have to text you back. We're not like a thing.
Okay, I figured we had a nice time.
You had a nice time. I was miserable. I mean, who takes their first date to Subway? It's not like you have a foot long.
Let them fight. You're a wizard, Harry. You're gonna need a bigger boat. I'll be back.
Death has come to your little town, Jim.
Hey everyone, how's it going? And welcome back to Chills and Thrills. Connor back here along with Chris, and today we are jumping into kind of like a modern day like little duology of films. The Happy Death Day film. We will begin today with the first Happy Death Day, and I believe I wanted to see this in theaters when it came out, and I just back in the when this film came out, I was just not going to theaters a lot. Recently, I've been going to theaters a lot more, but 2017 through, until probably Godzilla King of the Monsters came out in 2019, I think the only movie I seen in theaters in 2017 was Kong Skull Island. And then I don't think I went to the theater again until King of the Monsters in 2019. But I'm glad I did watch this film when it came out. I don't remember how I came to find it. I think I was just strolling through Walmart or something like that, and I seen it, ended up purchasing it, watched it, and I was like, damn, this is pretty good. So I'd seen that they had a second one out, watched that one, had fun with that one as well. I know, Chris, I think you said you haven't seen the second one yet. So what did you think of this first one? I know you said this was like your second or third watch of this one.
Yeah, this is my second viewing. I actually did see this one in theaters. I was beginning to date a girl at the time, and I think our first movie we saw together was the first It Chapter 1, and then this was within a month of that, and we were just going to see movies kind of casually as friends, and this is a movie that I'd say is a pretty good. It's like a fun kind of date movie. It's a scary movie, but it ain't really scary, and it's kind of funny and kind of amusing and kind of a comedy. So like, it's a good one that's like not a very, you're not going to like scare anyone to death, and you're not going to like have like a miserable time. Like it's kind of a nice popcorn horror comedy movie. And so like, it's a good one. It was a good one for that. And yeah, pleasant surprise, it's an interesting concept from the trailers, but they execute it with a bit, it's one of those things where it could have been a very phoned in B movie, nothing really spectacular, but I feel like those involved, from the lead actress to the filmmakers, were intent on having as much fun within it and on giving it as much kind of pizzazz as they could. It didn't feel like they were phoning it in. It felt like they wanted to make something that was, at worst, good entertainment, and I think they succeeded.
Well, you already caught me because I did not think about that one. I definitely went and seen It Chapter 1 in theaters in 2017, so you caught me on that one. But it feels like in this film that like everyone they're on board with the concept, like you said, that everyone seems to be like having fun and good time and like giving it their all. And it just seems like everyone in the cast and crew, from like special features on the film or even like just watching the film, that like everybody had a good time and they enjoyed what they were shooting and they believed in the director and like where he was taking this film. And I buying this, like I had seen the previews and trailers, commercials, all that for the film, and I didn't know what to think of it. So, and I seen it, like I said, at one of a Walmart or a Target or something, and I didn't buy it at first. I kind of looked it up, read some reviews on it, and I was like, you know what? I think it was like 12 or 15 bucks for the Blu-ray. I was like, all right, you know what? I'll give it a shot. What's 12, 15 bucks? After reading some reviews on it, the reviews were pretty good, and Rotten Tomatoes, all that stuff, it was pretty high on the film. So I was like, all right, like we'll give it a chance. And I got it home, ended up watching it, later on down the road. And like you, I was pleasantly surprised. And this is one I can go back to every now and again. Like I believe I introduced my little sister to this one, and she likes it, and a couple other friends to it, and they were on board with it as well. So I mean, everyone that I know that has seen it, I mean, has a little praise for it.
It's a fun little kind of, if you're one of those folks that maybe you've never been into horror movies and it's not your thing, or maybe you're scared to death of them, this is like a nice, like low level, but entry level sort of gateway drug into like, oh hey, you can kind of have fun with scary movies, and it's not about being terrified. There's kind of just like an entertainment factor there. This is a nice little like, I'm pretty sure it's PG-13, at least it feels that way. So it's like a nice little entry level segue into like, let's have a little fun, let's get a little scares, let's have it's a nice movie in that way. It's a compliment often given to movies like this is they know what they are, or it knows what it is. You heard people talking about the first John Wick that way, and that just means that it's going for a certain tone, and it keeps that kind of tone and stylistic execution consistent. And so like that sort of, it knows what it is. It's like, yeah, it knows the wheelhouse that it's playing in, and it's kind of playing to its own strengths and taking advantage, squeezing the lemon, of the concept.
Absolutely. This isn't one of those films like we just did, the Victor Crowleys that are gonna gore you to death or show a bunch of nudity, like you said, PG-13. So I believe we might get like one F-bomb in this film, and then a couple.
You're allowed
others.
one. Yeah, you're allowed one F-bomb in a PG-13. One non-sexual F-bomb. So you can't say I'm gonna F you, but you can say like, but you can say I'm gonna beat the F out of you. So there you go.
Yeah, these key points matter. But I mean,
to the MPA, it does apparently. To the MPA, it does.
Yeah. Let me give you a little of the background on the first Happy Death Day for us.
Let's do it.
Happy Death Day is a 2017 American comedy slasher film directed by Christopher Landon and written by Scott Lobdell. It stars Jessica Roth and Israel Broussard. The film follows college student Tree Gelbman, who is murdered on the night of her birthday, but begins reliving the day repeatedly, at which point she sets out to find the killer and stop herself from dying. Jason Blum serves as a producer through his Blumhouse production company, and Happy Death Day was released by Universal Pictures on October 13th, 2017, and received generally mixed reviews, and a sequel titled Happy Death Day to You was released on February 13th, 2019. So that's a little background on the film.
Very fun. It was kind of an unexpected breakout hit, so they ran it back, and I'll be interested in seeing where it goes in the second one.
Well, I've heard so many comparisons to the film Groundhog Day, and
the film itself even makes that reference.
Yeah. And I've gotten crap because I've never seen Groundhog Day. I don't know if you have.
It's funny how the world works, because I've never actually watched Groundhog Day either. It's one of those movies that always just slip through the cracks for me. There's a number of those like classic comedies that like I just skipped right over. So that's funny.
Well, maybe we'll have to pop that in and have a little conversation later.
There are people at home that are like, neither of these guys have seen Groundhog Day. Like, what is this nonsense?
Yeah, I apologize.
I mean, sorry, it's just, I like Bill Murray, but like I don't have like an encyclopedic viewing history of all of the Bill Murray comedies.
Well, at least, Tree doesn't even know who Bill Murray is. At least we know who he is. So
Yeah, I know. Yeah, I know. Definitely that youngster, that younger generation thing. It's like in Zombieland where the little girl also doesn't know who Bill Murray is.
yeah, at least we are aboard that train.
Yeah, yeah.
Groundhog Day might be one of the ones I watch here in the future, just to draw some comparisons with this film, just for the fun of it.
True, yeah.
Why don't we go ahead and get into a trailer for Happy Death Day? We'll get a plot synopsis read off for this bad boy, and we'll come back with some numbers, some fun facts, and continue on with it. So, all right, Chills and Thrills listeners, this is Happy Death Day.
Oh, hey, you're up.
Am I in a dorm room?
Yeah, I folded your pants for you.
Great.
Dude, did you hit that or what?
Go shorty, it's your birthday.
Stop global warming.
We gon' party like it's your birthday. We gon' sip and party like it's your
You
birthday.
sneaky little biatch. Maybe you should switch to water next time. Super helpful. Don't be late to the party tonight.
Okay, bye.
Bye.
Tree, happy birthday.
You can find me in the club, bottle full of bub. Look, mommy, I got the ex again and taking drugs. I'm in the habit.
You scared me.
Hey, you're up.
Look, I know this isn't gonna make any sense. Stop global warming? I feel like I'm losing my mind.
You sneaky little biatch.
Happy birthday. I've already lived through this day. Somebody's gonna kill me tonight. So you can hear now.
But is everything okay?
Shut up! Shut up! Shut up!
Assuming that I believe any of this is even possible.
Sprinklers, car alarm.
The way I see it, you have unlimited amount of lives, unlimited opportunities to solve your own murder.
So I'm supposed to keep dying until I figure out who my killer is?
You want to live to see tomorrow, right? Whoever's killing you knows it's your birthday.
Pretty much the entire school knows.
These are signs of major trauma. You should be dead.
You relive the same day over and over again. Kind of start to see who you really are. I did it! Woo!
All units, we've got a 187.
After a night of drunken partying, Tree Gelbman wakes up on her birthday in the dorm room of a classmate, Carter Davis. She dismisses him, returning to her room. Her sorority housemate, Lori Spangler, gives her a cupcake, which she throws away. Tree meets with her married professor, Gregory Butler, with whom she is having an affair. That night, on her way to a party, Tree is lured into a tunnel and murdered by a figure wearing a baby face mask. She immediately wakes up back in Carter's bed and is unnerved to find the previous day's events repeating themselves. Baffled, she relives this day, this time avoiding the tunnel and reaching the party. However, the masked killer follows her and murders her again. Tree wakes up in Carter's bed, realizing she is in a time loop, and barricades herself in her room to avoid death. The killer, already hiding inside, murders her for a third time. Waking up, Tree explains the events to Carter. He suggests taking advantage of the loop to identify her killer. She spends the next several iterations trailing suspects, but she is killed each time. After waking from a loop where she is bludgeoned, Tree faints and awakens in the campus hospital. When the killer shows up, she escapes the hospital in Gregory's car, only to be pursued and killed again. Back in Carter's bed, Tree convinces him of her predicament by demonstrating her knowledge of the day's events. She sees a news report on John Toombs, a serial killer being held at the campus hospital. Concluding that Toombs is her killer, she rushes to the hospital to warn of his escape. Toombs breaks free and nearly kills Tree, but Carter follows and rescues her. Toombs kills Carter before chasing Tree to a bell tower where she subdues him with a crowbar. Before delivering a fatal blow, she realizes that if she kills Toombs and ends the loop, Carter will remain dead forever. She runs to the top of the tower and hangs herself from the bell rope. Tree awakens in Carter's dorm room and finds him alive again. Now confident in solving her murder, she proceeds happily through the day. She ends her affair with Gregory and meets her father for lunch, where they begin to reconcile. That night, she goes to the hospital and traps and kills Toombs. Relieved to be free, she celebrates her birthday in Carter's room and eats the cupcake that Laurie gave her. Tree wakes up still in the loop. Horrified, she returns to her room with the intent to run away, but Laurie offers her the cupcake again. Tree realizes that the previous loop was the only time she ate the cupcake, and she had died in her sleep, thus Laurie is her true killer. Laurie had poisoned the cupcake, but when Tree failed to eat it, Laurie used her job as a nurse to frame Toombs for Tree's murder. Laurie admits to also having an affair with Gregory, whose preference for Tree drove her mad with jealousy. She then attacks Tree, but Tree manages to stuff the poisoned cupcake in her mouth and then kicking her out of a second-floor window to her death. Later at a restaurant, Tree and Carter muse over the day's events, and he offers her his room for the night. The next day, she wakes up believing she is still in the time loop, but Carter quickly reveals that he was just playing a prank on her and it is really the next day. Tree is too relieved to be angry at him, and the two kiss, not knowing what the rest of the day will bring, but enjoying the time that they have. Alright, let me hit you with some numbers. Happy Death Day had a budget of $4.8 million in 2017 and had a box office return of $125.5 million, so a huge success, as Chris just said a little bit ago.
Yeah, if you're wondering why they made Happy Death Day to you, that's the reason right there.
Yeah, I mean, that's a massive, you made $120 million pretty much, a little bit over $120 million. That's insane.
Yeah, sure, yes, the theaters keep their almost 50% cut, but still, a box office performance that is essentially, you're talking 4 million versus, even if we're rounding, 4 million versus 120 million, that's 30 times the budget. There's no slicing that where that isn't wildly successful. You cut that box office in half, that's 60 million back to the studio, back to the producers. You factor in the VOD sales, the DVD, Blu-ray sales, the fact that horror movies always re-spike in October. They always get licensed back out to all the streamers or put on YouTube free with ads and whatnot. So it's horror movies that are cheap. If this movie had made 40 million at the box office, it would have been a massive success and it would continue to do so. This is a 125 on a less than 5 million budget is just insane. And it's that's a movie that's an evergreen success story for them. That's just how that works.
Yeah, it makes me want, this is one of the films after I watched it at home, it was dang it, I wish I would have went and, sat in the theater for 95 minutes and enjoyed this with a crowd to, laugh or gasp along with them, or just to get that vibe with the crowd to have that.
It was a fun time. It was a fun theater viewing for sure.
Well, I will be a little bit jealous of you at seeing this one in theaters because I like this film a lot, surprisingly, for being a kind of more modern horror movie. This is one of the ones I can get on board with to watch almost any time I'm sitting home.
I don't love it to death, but I do. It is a good time. It is a good time. There's very little to kind of there's not really a lot to dislike about it. It's not anything sort of revolutionary, but it is a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun for what its concept is. It doesn't underdeliver. It doesn't particularly overdeliver, but it you're getting what you pay for. It does what it says on the tin, as they say.
Yeah, it's just a different concept than what I'm used to. With my Halloween
and a fun way of doing a murder mystery that doesn't really feel like a whodunit murder mystery, but it kind of is. Just a nice spin on the genre.
Yeah, speaking of the whodunit, did you, when your first time seeing it, did you come close to guessing who it was, or did you figure it out before the ending, or?
I did not. The first time through, I was just kind of along for the ride, and I'm seeing it as kind of like a date night, so I sometimes I like to kind of dumb myself down a little bit to kind of. I don't try to overthink stuff because sometimes it can ruin a viewing experience. Just like if you watch a scary movie and you're kind of like determined to not be scared, it doesn't become fun. So like when I watch a scary movie, especially in a theater, I'm trying to like wimpify myself so that like it is more effective. I'm trying to like get into it so that it will be very scary because that's more fun. I'm not trying to be like, oh, that didn't make me jump. It's like, no, it's like you almost want yourself to be easier to make jump in a scary movie. So when I'm watching this and it's like a mystery, it's like I couldn't tell you if anything was coming to mind the first time I saw it. And it didn't. I don't think I was really engaged enough to kind of. I wasn't watching it as a murder mystery, I guess, because I kind of assumed that because they play up early enough in the movie that like the character that there's like the established murder character of Toombs, and so you think like, okay, it's like it's not so much about who's doing it as it is about just her trying to avoid it. So the twist it didn't seem like like from the get-go it wasn't played out as like this grand tapestry mystery. So I wasn't really thinking along those lines of trying to pick out who it was.
Okay, kind of more like just block the world out and kind of picture yourself in the movie yourself and just like enjoy the
Yeah.
ride.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, I got you. Well, here, I'll give you some more numbers on the film. This is rated a 6.6 out of 10 on IMDb. It has a 71% approval rating on Rotten Tomatoes, a 58% rating on Metacritic. 80% of our Google users liked this film, so go Google users. And then including the 10 times that Tree is killed or dies in the film, there are a total of 20 deaths, averaging out to one every 4.8 minutes.
That sounds about right. I mean, that's a pretty high body count for a PG-13 horror movie where one of the characters is half of the death count, but
Yeah. Well,
it,
there's a line I'll spoil. I'm not spoiling anything major here, but there's a line in
I
the
think
second
anyone who
film.
listens to us would have seen the movie first. I don't know too many people that are listening to I mean, maybe, I don't know, maybe.
Well, there's a line in the second film where Tree says that she died 11 times, but from my count, I only seen 10. So I mean,
I wonder if there's any kind of deleted scene or something or anything like that about how many times. I guess I suppose, when they're in the montage mode, I guess it could be implied that we don't see every time she died on screen, I suppose.
well, and I'm a nerd too. I used to watch the Dead Meat channel on YouTube with all the kill counts and stuff. So when I got done watching the film and counting everything, I went and even cheated and like watched the kill count that he did on the film, and I was like, yeah, 20 victims, 10 were Tree. And so I'm just like, all right, well, where did they get this 11 from?
Yeah, that's interesting. You wonder. I have no idea what the second film's about, but you wonder if it was maybe something where they were gonna. Maybe there was a plan to maybe explore something further about that in a further sequel. You don't know,
Yeah, I'm not sure. So I figured I would throw that in there just in case like anybody listens to this and they're like, no, and they get that and they're like, in the second film, she says she died 11 times, you're wrong. And it's like, all right, well, I counted 10, she says 11. So we'll just, if it was 11 times and 21 total deaths, then it averages out to like every 4.4 minutes,
They did it specifically to trigger OCD in people like myself. movie OCD. I don't have actual OCD. I have film OCD.
That continuity.
Yeah, every time in Terminator 3 when John Connor says he was 13 in Terminator 2, it drives me crazy because he was clearly it takes place in 1994, 95, which is 10 years after the original. He was clearly like a 10-year-old. And like, yes, he acted more like a 13-year-old than a 10-year-old, but mathematically, the fact that he's narrating it and was like, it came after me when I was 13. It's like, no, it didn't. I'm sorry, but the timeline doesn't add up. Like, it's like, if people on the internet can figure out in 37 seconds when they watch the movie that there's an inconsistency, how do people make the movie and watch the movie and edit the movie and screen the movie and not find these things to fix? It blows my mind.
I don't know if it's sometimes they just don't care or what.
Yeah. I mean, there's no answer to this riddle. I'm just driving myself
There's
insane.
nothing.
I do it every other episode. I can't help it.
I'm a continuity stickler too and stuff like that. So it bugs. It might bug you a little more, but it bugs me right with you.
Yeah.
Those were all I have for the numbers. So I will get to some fun facts about the film for you. Some of these you might know, some of these you might not. So my first one here for you is, in the film's original ending, Tree is taken to the hospital after her encounter with Lori, and the doctor instructs Tree to stay away from pain medication for at least one day due to the extent of her injuries. After he leaves, a nurse comes in and says she is giving Tree something for the pain, and Tree informs the nurse of the doctor's orders, but the nurse reveals herself to be Dr. Butler's wife, Stephanie, who says it is for her own pain, and she then murders Tree in revenge for her husband's affair with the student.
Wow. That was the original ending?
Yes.
Oh, wow. So she would have died at the end of the movie? Huh. That would have been, I think that would have been a pretty bold twist ending to the movie. I don't like to do this, but like, man, I think I maybe would have liked that ending more,
I think they seen like test screenings and whatnot for this film, and we're like, yeah, they might have had to pick something different, or they might have never test screened that original ending and just we're like, all right, yeah, we got the ending we want.
So just like sometimes characters might get killed who were originally alive because audience members didn't like them so much. You wonder if, because the performance is really good and it's like a pretty enjoyable character journey that the character goes on, and after a whole movie of dying over and over, I'm sure just with the tone and style of the movie, it doesn't feel like the kind of movie that would have that dark of an ending. It feels like a movie that is a little bit more light than that. Like you could have made a much darker tone style of movie, and that ending might have worked. But I think they probably just realized that like that ending isn't a fit for the kind of movie we made. Like it's like you're not going to kill off like Spider-Man at the end of the Spider-Man movie.
Yeah, it's just if they did go with that ending,
but
she's died so many times that you could write her to come back in a second film anyway.
Yeah, gosh, I do like that though, of having that thread of the wife being cheated on coming back, and like, oh man, it's one of those that it sounds so good the first time I hear it that I'm like, oh man, I really would have dug that. I'm really into that, Sometimes I really hate the main character dies at the end of the movie thing, but sometimes it kind of works, and a lot of times in horror movies I tend to think that like it's more okay to do it,
I am right there with you. My next one here for you is this film, which is set in New Orleans and was filmed on the campus of Loyola University in New Orleans, has the killer wearing a mask that is nearly identical to King Cake Baby, the official mascot of the New Orleans Pelicans basketball team. Johnson Berticelli, the mascot's creator, sued Universal Pictures and Blumhouse for copyright infringement, demanding half of the film's profits, and a settlement was reached in 2021.
Good Lord. Yeah. I guess you ask for half and see what you can get.
Yeah.
Like that's always what it is. It's like if someone's, does something that you think is $1,000 worth of damage, you sue them for 10 grand and hopefully you'll get 2 or 3,
Yep. I want a $5 raise. We'll give you $1.25. All right, I'll take it.
Yeah, I would have been happy with 75 cents,
Right.
Yeah, so apparently I'm doing a little bit of looking, and apparently it was test audience's reaction that they hated the idea that she was potentially going to be caught forever in the time loop of dying, or that she couldn't break free and wasn't able to win in the end, which I think by the end of it, you want a character who's been dying the whole movie to finally figure out how to not die anymore.
Catch a break.
Yeah, I mean, it's a different, for the tone and style of the movie and the point of it. I think the ultimate conclusion being, well, she got anyway, would have been a little bit of a letdown.
Yeah, kind of like doesn't sit well with how the rest of the film went.
Yeah, exactly.
According to director Christopher Landon, Tree Gelman's punchline in the beginning, "Who takes their first date to Subway? It's not like you have a foot long," was improvised by actress Jessica Roth.
That's a heck of a line too.
That's a feeling hurter right there.
Hmm. Yeah, there's a there's a big there's a lot of this movie that is, it's for lack of a better term, this not to be an insult, but a lot of the female characters have this sort of like they come across as a bit of a bitch, but in a way that it's like you don't feel bad for the people, well, for some of the characters that they're sort of being a bitch to, and so like it's kind of fun, but like it does just make you think of like some of the most insufferable personalities you've ever encountered in your own life. Like, oh my gosh, just like shut up, stop with your stupid insults, you airhead. I suppose I don't know, but that's a good line though. That's a fun line.
Definitely the prissy "I'm better than you" types, a lot
Yeah,
of them in this
yeah.
film.
Yeah, and it gives, they start off with the protagonist being quite unlikable, and they give her that sort of a legitimate like I'm gonna become a better person kind of character arc, which is endearing, and I like that.
Absolutely, couldn't agree with you more.
She only has to die 10 times to be a better person.
The original mascot and mask designed by Tony Gardner for the killer was a pig, a motif already done in the Saw movies, which was one of the reasons they had changed to the babyface mask in this film.
Interesting.
Yeah, I don't know. It would have been
Yeah.
cool to see like some drafts of what the pig was gonna look like, because I don't think it would have just been a pig mask like in the Saw films, but who knows?
Yeah. Yeah, I kind of the mask isn't terribly similar, but whenever I always saw the killer in this movie with basically like the black outfit and that mask that has kind of a contrast, it always made me think of the old movie Valentine. Did you ever see that movie from about 20 years ago, 25 years ago?
I believe I
It's
did.
a
It's been a long time
Yeah,
though.
it's a horror film sort of in the vein of Scream, a little bit in those footsteps where the killer has kind of like this kind of Cupid mask kind of a thing, this kind of pale Cupid mask. And I watched it once with my mother on TV, and I remember kind of loving the kind of twist ending that it had. But like that's kind of like the color contrast of this kind of made me think of that in terms of the look.
I'm not. It's kind of, it is an unsettling mask. I mean, it's not a cute or anything like it's
Yeah,
not a
and
good.
it's a tough thing to do because a lot of times, because things that are kind of meant to be like cute or goofy, but played as unsettling can work really well. But sometimes when you go for that, it's kind of like you're trying too hard to be like, oh, this is something that's innocent and now it's disturbing. Like sometimes a movie can kind of feel like it's going too hard for that. But I think this one's like it's a good creepy. They land on the right side of the equation, I think.
Yeah, I agree with you. It's definitely a little unsettling, kind of, especially like in the shadows and things like that in certain scenes in this. It's like, well, I guess if I seen that, I might kind of be
Yeah.
like, "Hello, like, is there a problem?" And like, if they don't answer me, I might turn around and go the other way too.
Yeah, yeah. Something maybe they could have maybe gone a little more foreboding with it, a little more of a neutral expression or something, but I think it still lands.
Just bring in like a Chucky face, something like that.
Yeah, yeah. Who knows?
Even though they only filmed and show her face and bare back in the movie, Jessica Ross said in a 2017 interview that she decided to go totally nude for the scene where she walks around campus naked in order to feel the same rush as her character. She called it a very
Oh,
liberating moment. The
liberating is
scene
always the word they use. Oh, I was gonna say to be a crew member that day.
The scene was being filmed on an active college campus, and this presented the risk of students witnessing the scene being filmed and or taking photos. So the crew took extreme precautions to clear away any potential onlookers, and in the end, they managed to do the scene in just 2 or 3 takes.
Just two or three. Okay, fair enough. That doesn't sound egregious. Two or three. Yeah. Okay. Sounds like they could have got it in two, but whatever.
Do it one more time.
Yeah, yeah.
It does. I mean, it doesn't help that Jessica Roth is a very pretty individual.
Yeah, true, 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 true. There are worse people to see walking naked on campus, I suppose.
The theatrical trailer for this movie utilizes the song In the Club by 50 Cent as Tree's birthday ringtone. However, the final film does not feature this, as the crew and studio could not acquire the rights. As a result, an original ringtone composition was concocted.
Which is wild because I mean, you have to secure the rights to use in the trailers and promos. It's not like that's free use, but you couldn't get them for the film itself, you know? I don't know. And in theory, you would have locked that in for the movie first before you ever did any promo. So putting my thinker's hat on makes me think that they weren't able to get it for the movie. But then when the movie was looking pretty good and the movie was feeling pretty good and testing pretty good, maybe they were like, marketing department can maybe shell out a little bit to use it in all the promos because it's a good marketing idea, even though we couldn't lock it in for the movie. That's kind of what it feels like.
That was one of the things I remember from the trailer. So
it did make for an effective trailer. Like whatever guy in marketing decided they needed to cut that check to make sure to use it for the marketing, kudos to them, because I think about 50 million of the box office is a result from that marketing.
Just her ringtone alone.
Yeah, I'm being serious.
My last one for you here. I don't know if you'll have a strong opinion on this one or not, but it has to do with somebody else starring in the lead role. And the script was allegedly written in 2007, and it was originally going to star Megan Fox and be produced by Michael Bay, which may explain the name of the school in the film Bayfield University.
Huh. That's interesting. I would say that Megan Fox is not as good of an actress as the woman who plays Tree, but I will also say that this concept, greenlit in 2007 or made in 2007, right on the heels of or around all of the Transformers Megan Fox hype, that would have been a hit movie for sure. That would have made absolute bank because I was 15 in 2007 and 15-year-olds everywhere the world over loved Megan Fox in 2007. So if they had dropped this movie starring Megan Fox back then, sure, she wouldn't have given some great performance, but it's kind of the movie where not super, super required, but that movie probably would have made bank back then.
Probably would have utilized her sexuality a little more, especially coming off the Transformers movies. So I definitely see it going big back then.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, she and I think she certainly would have been right at home doing like kind of the bitch character at the beginning, and then kind of going on like the nice journey arc. Like it feels like the kind of role that could have been written to the, let's say, limited acting range that Megan Fox has.
I wouldn't have been against it back then. I do like Jessica Roth. I like her performance in these two films. I haven't seen her in a whole lot more than these two films, but I do like her in these two films for sure.
And I would say we got the better movie. The 2007 Megan Fox version probably would have been a bit more hip, a bit more quote unquote sexy, and have more eye candy and things of that nature. But I think the better movie is probably the one we got.
I agree with you. And it's the one we're able to watch, so clearly it's the better version. We have no idea what that other one would have looked like.
Yeah, the Michael Bay Platinum Dunes version, when you think about the kind of movie Platinum Dunes was making back then, it probably would have been that darker style and might have worked better with that darker ending, when you think about like Amityville Horror and Texas Chainsaw Remake and the Friday the 13th remake, like it feels like you could see that version of this movie being done that way, and then that ending might have been more of the fitting one.
And that's what I was thinking with Platinum Dunes, with the horror movies they were doing back then. We might have got a rated R version of this and had a little bit more blood and gore and nudity and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
Who knows?
Yep, possibly, yes.
That is all I have for you with some fun facts. So why don't we go ahead and get into our favorites category? Would you like to lead on character, or would you like me to take it away?
You can go. Why not?
I'll take it away. I kind of went back and forth for me between Tree and Carter. And Carter because he just kind of no matter what, how she keeps re-waking up in his bed, and even when she like Tree's like a top notch like bitch to him, like just rude as can be, like he's still there for her, trying to help her and kind of be like that like knight in shining armor for her. But I chose Tree because of the arc they give her in this film. Like
Hmm.
she does wake up. She's one of the most like arrogant and annoying, like bitchy, and like all she cares about is herself. And she after like you said a little bit earlier, after she dies a couple times, realize what's going on, she starts to like care about Carter and care about people, and you can just see how she goes full like transformation into like being a better person. And I like the character arc they gave her in this one, so she was my favorite character.
Yeah, I agree, and that was kind of I kind of cheated. I think it might be the easy answer because this movie isn't exactly much of an ensemble, but it's like it's Tree as your A choice, and then Carter as the B choice. There's not really much else to choose from. You're gonna pick like the killer or something, like so. Yeah, and it's for all the same reasons. They're not. You don't often get the final girl, if you will, in a horror movie that starts off as being kind of the blonde bitch and then kind of goes on a redemption arc. Usually that's one of the characters that just gets killed, the kind of mean blonde character, you know, think Friday the 13th part 7, something like that. And so it's nice to see that it's like that this movie isn't really about like racking up the body count, but it's like, yeah, you start off with the character who's kind of like a typical biatch, and then she kind of becomes more humbled and a nicer, more vintage style final girl, nice girl by the end of it. Like that's playing with the tropes in a bit of a way that's fun.
I did like, I mean, I did have fun with Danielle being like the bitchy like house sister, and like like sisters don't keep secrets, and like, oh, you sneaky little biatch, and like kind
Yeah,
of
yeah,
just
yeah.
calling like other house sisters like porkers for wanting to eat breakfast and stuff like that. Like
Yeah, there
she
could
was
have been a
fun.
if there could have been a version of the ending where that character died, that would have been satisfying. Like, don't be mean.
She didn't even get hers. She was rude and obnoxious through the entire film, and I think she didn't change up. That was a reason I thought she was fun in the film. Even at the end in her
Yeah.
interview, the
Yeah.
girl's dead and she's just ripping through her.
She's not holding back at all.
What was your favorite quote from the film, or a most memorable line for you?
It's funny because we brought it up several times at this point, but it legitimately was who takes their first date to Subway. Besides, it's not like you have a foot long. It legitimately was that line. I'm like, that's just a zinger. That's a zinger from hell. It's like that's just a fun line. And so yeah, that was my favorite quip from the movie. The movie's got a few good ones, but that was one that I kind of just dug the most.
That was one of the ones I chose as like a kind of like a more like for fun, like a little comedy bit in the film. And then I chose a little bit more serious one as well. I like when Tree's kind of having like the heart to heart, and she goes, I can't change what I've done, but I can start trying to be a better person today. And it's like
Hmm.
anyone can live by that motto. Anyone can say that. Or I mean, everyone in their life has been a bad person or gone through something, and they can start trying to be a better person today. So I liked that this movie kind of, it has fun with little quips like that, and then it takes it. Like we said, she starts out as just a little biatch in the beginning, and then she turns into this better person, and she starts trying to change her ways around. So I picked that one as well.
Yeah, and you know, this is like a humble little movie. This isn't some ambitious thing, but sometimes it's those kind of unexpected and not really ambitious movies and places where you can hear some lines of dialogue like that might trigger a little bit of something in someone's personality to kind of think about some things and make some adjustments, and that's always good. It's always stuff like that. Wisdom always comes when you least expect it in some regards.
Absolutely. I mean, there, like you said, there's a couple other good lines in the film. Like at the end, the one always gives me a laugh where Danielle's like, "What the hell are you guys doing in there?" And she's like, "Lori ate my cupcake." And it's like, okay, well, that's
Yeah,
like cheesy and funny. Like
yeah.
little things like that, can add a little laugh to the theater or an at home experience watching the film. So all that little stuff helps.
Yeah. What was another line that was fun from Tree where she's talking about Carter and she says, I guarantee you if I make it through today or if I make it to tomorrow, I'm going to have his babies. It's like, that's a nice sentiment.
Absolutely, she wakes up in his bed every day and she's slowly starting to like the guy little by
Yeah, and
little.
all it took was for her to find out that he didn't take advantage of her while drunk, and she's like, he's the one. Oh, to be a college age person with those kind of standards of romance.
Yeah. No kidding.
I can trust him around me when I'm drunk. He must be husband material. Well, I mean, gosh, I just got to take a moment of silence, like the despicable moment where they have like the frat guy walk in when she's being attacked, and like he thinks it's more of a like getting down to business situation. He's just like all cool with it. It's like, oh come on, man. It's like that is like it's funny, but it's like it feels gross because it's like that can't be like a realistic portrayal of that situation. It's like you like to think that that's not how it really goes. So it's like it's just like I hate that it like portrays like in the same way with like the girls' very negative personalities. It might be funny, but it is not fun to portray like the worst of like what college folks get up to. I don't know.
Hey, I can agree with you. I know exactly what you mean. I'll give you my favorite scene since we're talking about a whole lot of Tree and Carter here. So my favorite scene in the film, I had trouble picking for this one. I think I watched this film like 3 times in the last like week and a half. So I ended up
Oh, you
going
are
with
locked. You are locked in.
I was because I couldn't really. I knew my favorite character was going to be Tree because of the arc that they give her. And then I had to find favorite quote, and I didn't want to use the subway one because it's so like right there in your face. So I was like, like what else? What else can I add? I can add and do it. I can pull a Chris and do A and a B.
Yeah.
And then with the kills and the death scenes, they're PG-13, so they're not too much in your face with blood and gore.
Yeah, you see like a bloody knife go through a wall at one point. It's that was one thing that's like, man, this like I know this movie made money because it was PG-13 and it could appeal to teens that were at that high school age, middle school age. But man, they could have had a lot of fun if this was able to cut loose with an R rating.
Absolutely, but it made me watch it a couple times to try to figure out like, all right, what was my favorite scene and death scene and quote and stuff. But the scene I ended up going on with is when Tree is in the hospital and Toombs is actually chasing after her, and Carter ends up like yelling "Hey!" and tackling Toombs and getting into a little fight with him, and Toombs knocks him out, breaks his neck, and kind of he continues chasing Tree, who ends up getting the better of him, and she realizes like if I survive this day, like Carter's dead and gone forever. So she ends up climbing, what is it, the bell tower, and ends up hanging herself. That was just my favorite scene because she could have survived the day and went on with her life, like been like a hero. She got Tombs, and she ended up saying no, like Carter's this important to me that I'm going to kill myself and I'm going to take a chance again reliving this day. So that scene was was the one I chose.
Yeah, and there's something very visceral. Oh my goodness. I just flubbed English. All right. There's something very visceral about hanging in movies that's like it's so brutal without being particularly like visually violent. And so like it's all that's always, that's always like a hard-hitting scene when someone decides to, hang themselves at the clock tower. Um the scene or sequence rather that I picked as my favorite was when she's actually trying to do her initial round of figuring out who her murderer is, and it's just a lot of like following one person until she gets killed, so it clearly wasn't that person. I just think like it's like there's like a great movie in there where she just goes through every possibility of like who could it be. Well, I know all the people that it's not. Like she's spying on this girl and she gets killed. She's spying on the guy and he's looking at the gay porn and then she gets killed. Like it's like that whole sequence is just like the most fun for me because like yeah, that would be after getting through the initial shock of it. that you're repeating the day, like you would just go through the most like surface level rudimentary ways of trying to find out who your killer was, which is just like pick someone, follow them, and see if they end up being the person who kills you until you die, you know? So I like that as my favorite. That was my favorite scene.
Yeah, I like that sequence as well. Kind of like the whole montage of the film. You know, she's and it's showing. I like that one because it shows her like transition into being like a better person and like a better character, like slowly through each death that she has. So that's a good one as well.
Yeah, determination. It builds character. Trials and tribulations, going through the same thing over and over again just to get killed.
How pissed would you be every time you're so close and you think you
Oh my
got it and you
gosh.
turn around and there's the killer
Yeah.
hitting you with a
Dude,
bat or
by
stabbing
like the
you?
third time, I'm like finding whoever I know who has a gun and just sitting in my house with it until the killer comes.
Yep, come and get me. We're
I
gonna
got it.
figure this out one way or another.
I've got a double barrel shotgun. I'm blasting someone for the end of the day.
By time 7, 8, 9, yeah, I'm getting ready to give up, and she's still going strong. So
Mm-hmm.
props to
Mm-hmm.
her.
Indeed.
What was your favorite death in the film then, or death scene for the film?
I actually there's something really, really fun or visually engaging when she gets hit in the head in slow motion with the baseball bat. Something about that, just the way it lands and the way it comes within the movie. Like it's not this sort of isolated death scene or big drawn out sequence, but like something about that one, it's just like, oh, I just really like that's a fun one. I don't know. That's just like it's so simple but so effective.
And that's where she gets hit, and is that where she's like slowly falls down to the pillow in the
Yes.
bed? Okay.
Yeah. It's a
Yes.
good
I
little
like that
moment.
transition, how they did that.
Yeah, good. And like to see blunt force trauma kind of portrayed kind of gently in slow motion, it's a nice contrast. It's just an interesting thing to see.
We're on two opposite ends here. I ended up going with where she's getting arrested and the officer just gets
Yeah,
mollywopped by
yeah,
the car.
yeah.
So,
Mowed down, as some
yeah.
might say.
He absolutely gets just demolished or mowed down by the car, and it's so sudden that you see just a very quick glimpse of the light like shining on his body, and then he gets just
Mm.
railed by the car. And then this was something I was going to bring up to you that I never noticed, but this was meant to be a clue at who the killer was. Is when
But
the car
because of the
explodes.
candle. Yeah,
Yeah,
because of the candle. Yeah. On a rewatch, which I think this might be, if I've watched it since theaters, it was an in passing, not paying very much attention. But so this is the second like legitimate time that I've watched the movie, and I've got to say, on the second viewing, I'm like, okay. So like they were dropping some stuff, because what's the bad thing about any mystery is that if you hint it too much, it becomes very obvious to too many people who are watching. But if you don't hint it at all, then it feels like it's just out of nowhere and people feel like they never even had a chance to figure it out. The first Saw movie had some criticism for that, in that like it was like basically no hints or clues to try and figure out where that one was going. And so it's like you kind of have to thread that needle. And so that's a nice one. That's an interesting one.
yeah, I didn't catch that the first time I watched it, but rewatching it to do the episode, I caught that and I was like, this, if I would have caught that the first time, I probably would have been like, okay, like Lori gives her a cupcake with with a candle on it. Like,
Mm-hmm.
why would they put that in there? Most people would just throw a lighter or a match out the window. Like 2 + 2 = 4, the
Yeah.
math is math. And so I
And I'm
might have
pretty
added
sure,
that together.
yeah. And I'm pretty sure there were posters for this film that were kind of set around like that cupcake, I think.
Yeah,
So,
there were.
yeah. So, I mean, if you were really, if solving Happy Death Day was really your goal, if you were really locked into that, you might have been able to Sherlock Holmes it and figure it out if you were really determined.
Might have got her done.
Yeah. You might have been able to piece the puzzle together in 90 minutes or less.
For a 90-minute film, this is one I absolutely enjoy. So that is all I have for our
Oh, I love a
favorite.
good 90-minute movie. I love a good 90-minute movie. It's great. They're just so, it just feels like they just move along at such a good pace. They have no choice but to. And before you know it, you're like heading into the final act. They start fast, they move fast, they end fast. I like a good, properly done 90-minute movie.
Absolutely, and I think this is one of those movies.
For sure, for sure.
Again, that is all I have for you on the favorites category. Do we want to? Is there anything else we want to say before we move into some final thoughts on the first Happy Death Day?
I don't think so. I think we've kind of touched bases on a lot of it.
All right, well, I'll beat you to some final thoughts. I'll let you go second, and this is a film that I can watch and have a blast with, and it was a pleasant surprise when I seen it. I mean, I didn't really have a problem with any of the characters. I didn't really dislike any of them, even though, like, Danielle, she's meant to be disliked. She's the arrogant, like, head of the sorority and doesn't care about anything but herself and getting with the college boys and whatnot. And then you got Tree, who has the great arc coming from being like a complete bitch to caring more about Carter and being a nicer and better person. And like Lori, she wasn't in it too much, but it was kind of a nice twist to have her like kill her with the cupcake, like because her last death scene, she's like, I died in my sleep, and I thought that was a clever twist. And I just think all in all, like it's a fun film that if you like horror movies or even like, I mean, like they said, this is like a black comedy horror film. There's some fun to it. It's PG-13, and I mean, I think anyone who likes stuff like this, horror per se, should watch this film and give it a chance. And you're probably going to enjoy it if you do.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think if you're people that go hard in the paint on, in October in spooky season, and you do your 30 days of horror movies or what have you, this is a nice like week one kind of a movie, a nice little ease in. Maybe you've got some friends coming to movie night that they are just terrified of watching anything scary or spooky or violent or what have you, and you just kind of want to get them in the vibe and in the mood of like enjoying the horror genre. This is a nice little horror comedy. Everyone can kind of have a little bit of a good time with this. It's a fairly recent movie. It's not some vintage film. Like this is one people can have a little bit of some fun with. When you're walking your way towards Bride of Chucky, you stop along the way to watch something like Happy Death Day, and that can kind of get you where you're going. In terms of the spectrum, if you're going to start light and go progressively darker and harsher, it's just one of those, like, it's a nice little entry level, you must be this tall to ride this ride kind of a horror movie, but the height isn't very, very tall at all, So it's a fun one. It's a fun one for sure.
That's exactly what I was gonna say. Is that if somebody doesn't like horror, could be something that hey, give this a chance. If you can't handle this, you probably shouldn't watch horror movies. But if you can, get into this and dig a little bit of this film, then okay, well maybe take the next step to a little bit more hardcore horror and like ease your way in. Like this and this second film are like good films to get your feet wet within the horror like community.
Yeah, I learned pretty quickly about the levels of horror and how they impact different people. The same girl that I saw this movie with, she was totally fine in this movie. We had seen It Chapter 1 a few weeks prior, and she had kind of a rough time during that one, but was trying to not show it, And but the next year when the 2018 Halloween came out, she had to like excuse herself from the movie at one point because she was like borderline having like a panic attack. It was a very violent scene and just a lot, like it was a pretty brutal movie, and I was just like, oh wow, like some people really aren't built for this, are they?
I was built for this type of stuff at a very
Yeah.
young age.
Yeah, well, and in hindsight, I feel bad because like when it happened, I'm like, what? I'm like, what the heck are you talking? Like, you gotta walk out? Like, what are you talking about? I'm like, all right, you can. I'm not going anywhere. Like, I'm like, what? I'm like, what are you like? It's a movie. Like, what? How into it are you getting? You know, I was just really taken aback and caught off guard. Like, I've never actually seen any kind of horror movie with anyone where they were like, I need to walk out. I need to excuse myself. You know, I'm like, okay, you know, but whatever. But like in hindsight, I'm like, yeah, it's not that. That's not a very light movie. You know, Halloween 2018 goes pretty hard. You know, so.
Well, she could handle the first chapter of it, you know, with all the jump scares and things that they got in that.
I think she forced herself to handle that one because we were friends. You know, if that's making the picture clear. You know, I don't think she would enjoy that one. But she liked movies that were about kids and young people. She was into all that, so maybe that had something to do with it. I don't know. Whatever.
All right, maybe it wasn't the jump scares that got her. Maybe it's the gore. Maybe she can't handle the gore.
Perhaps. Well, you know, either way.
Well, that is it on the first Happy Death Day. This film did have a direct sequel titled Happy Death Day to You that was released February 13th, 2019. So we will be looking at that.
Are we going to talk about the sequel next week?
Of course we are.
Oh my gosh, I'm so excited. I can't wait to watch it.
I can't wait for you to watch it because I want to hear what you got to say about it. I want to hear your views and opinions.
I had no idea this was coming.
Well, come on, man. Hop on board the train. What have we been doing for a year and a half almost?
I didn't look at the schedule. I get revealed cold every time you end the episode. I find out what we're doing next week. I just go with the flow wherever the wind blows.
He's lying. No.
Couldn't keep the illusion going for 10 seconds.
Absolutely not. Chris knows the schedule. This is why we do this. It is all fun and games. And if a film has a sequel that we're doing, we're probably going to talk about that. It may not be the very next week, but we're probably eventually going to talk about
it. I should have picked my battles. I should have waited for you to say what we were doing next week and me be like, nah, that doesn't sound good. I don't want to do that. Just like, nah, we're not doing that. We're gonna figure something else out right now.
I'll wait for that come 6 episodes down the road, and I'll just
like I'm gonna be able to come up with a replacement.
But we will be doing Happy Death Day to You on our next episode. So Chris, as always, thanks for joining me for this one. You know, I'm glad that got to give you a rewatch on this one, and I can't wait to get you to watch the second one and see what you think about it, because I think that one, I don't know if my opinion is it's up to par with this one, but it is a pretty good and entertaining sequel.
Yeah, and thank you for having me, and I'm glad, you know, in this kind of setting, I have the sequel is one of those that it's like, oh, it looks fun, and I like the first one, but I just didn't get around to watching it, and now I kind of have like a more legitimate reason to be like, hey, sit down and finally give that one a watch, because you know you've kind of been at least, you know, surface level interested in checking it out for a couple of years now.
Absolutely. So again, thank you for joining me. Thank anyone who's out there listening to us. On our next episode, we will be doing the sequel, Happy Death Day to You. But until next time.
Oh my God. You sneaky little biatch.
His name's Carter. No, we did not have sex. But if I finally make it through this day somehow, I'm gonna have his babies. Lots to do. Gotta go.